If someone was born in the USSR in 1975, their first breath would enter a world where everything looked controlled, quiet, and heavy. They would grow up believing the country was powerful, yet they would sense something hidden behind the serious faces of adults waiting in long lines for food. Loudspeakers on the streets would praise success, but children would see empty shelves in stores and worried parents whispering when they thought no one was listening. From the very beginning, this person would learn that silence was safer than honesty, that dreams were smaller than rules, and that life moved according to decisions made far away in government buildings they would never enter. And without knowing it, this child would be walking toward one of the biggest collapses in history, a fall that would break everything familiar and force them to rebuild their life from the ground up as a child. They lived in a tiny apartment where winters were brutally cold and summers passed quickly. Their mother woke up before sunrise to secure rationed milk, and their father returned home tired after spending hours in queues for bread or meat. Every sound outside echoed the same tone, strict, disciplined, and distant. In school, the child's uniform looked exactly like everyone else's, and every classroom wall displayed leaders who expected loyalty. Teachers told stories of bravery, strength, and unity, and children repeated these words without understanding them. At home, the child played with simple toys, shared walls with neighbors they barely knew, and learned to smile even when they felt uncertain. Life was predictable, limited, and shaped by rules no one questioned openly. Still, the child believed it was normal, because there was no other world to compare it with. As they entered their teenage years, the world around them began to shift. Factories that once operated day and night started slowing down. Stores were emptier than before. People who used to walk with confidence now moved with tired shoulders. The teenager watched their parents argue quietly about money, something they never discussed before. They noticed neighbors whispering in hallways, worried about rising prices and shortages. Teachers continued repeating the same patriotic lessons, but even they seemed uncertain, their voices softer than usual. For the first time, the teenager wondered whether everything they had learned was true. They looked at the posters claiming prosperity and compared them with the empty refrigerator at home. They began to feel a strange mix of curiosity and fear, sensing that a storm was coming. Though no one dared to speak about it loudly, adulthood arrived suddenly, and with it came chaos. One winter morning, the young adult woke to news that the Soviet Union was collapsing. Flags changed overnight, borders shifted like lines drawn on sand, and the country they had lived in their entire life vanished almost instantly. People rushed to banks only to discover their savings had lost value. Salaries arrived late or did not arrive at all. Families who once felt secure now worried about buying food. Streets filled with confusion as businesses closed, factories shut down, and millions searched for stability that no longer existed. The young adult felt like the ground beneath them had broken apart. Everything familiar was gone: the rules, the government, the economy, and even the identity of the nation. It was frightening, uncertain, and overwhelming. But in the middle of the collapse, something new quietly entered their life: the freedom to speak, think, and choose slowly. They learned to navigate a world without the strict structure they had known since birth. People started selling handmade goods in open markets. Some opened small shops. Others left the country in search of better opportunities. The young adult took odd jobs, learned new skills, and discovered that freedom came with both risk and possibility. Over time, they rebuilt their life piece by piece, choosing their own path for the first time. They experienced struggle, loss, and hardship, but they also found strength they never knew they had. Looking back, they realized their life had carried them from rigid control to complete chaos and then to a fragile but hopeful freedom. Their journey became the story of millions who grew up in silence, watched an empire fall, and learned to rise again with courage shaped by the past and hope guided by the future.